as the door of his private laboratory in the Bureau of Standards swung open, but the frown on his face changed to a smile as he saw the form of Operative Carnes of the United States Secret Service framed in the doorway. "Hello, Carnes," he called cheerfully. "Take a seat and make yourself at home for a few minutes. I'll be with you as soon as I finish getting this weight." Carnes sat on the edge of a bench and watched with admiration the long, nervous hands and the slim, tapering fingers of the famous scientist. Dr. Bird stood well over 6 feet and weighed 206 pounds stripped. His massive shoulders and heavy shock of unruly black hair combed to give him the appearance of a prize fighter, until one looked at his hands. Acid stains and scars could not hide the beauty of these mobile hands, the hands of an artist and a dreamer. An artist Dr. Bird was, albeit his artistry expressed itself in the most delicate and complicated experiments in the realms of pure and applied science that the world has ever seen, rather than in the commoner forms of art. The doctor finished his task of weighing a porcelain crucible, set it carefully into a desiccator, and turned to his friend. "What's on your mind, Carnes?" he asked. "You look worried. Is there another counterfeit on the market?" The operative shook his head. "Have you been reading those stories that the papers have been carrying about Mammoth Cave?" he asked. Dr. Bird emitted a snort of disgust. "I read the first one of them part way through on the strength of its being an Associated Press dispatch," he replied, "but that was enough. It didn't exactly impress me with its veracity, and, from a viewpoint of literature, the thing was impossible. I have no time to pore over the lucubrations of an inspired press agent." "So you dismiss them as mere press agent work?" "Certainly. What else could they be? Things like that don't happen fortuitously just as the tourist season is about to open. I suppose that those yarns will bring flocks of the curious to Kentucky, though. The public always responds well to sea serpent yarns." "Mammoth Cave has been closed to visitors for the season," said Carnes quietly. "What?" cried the doctor in surprise. Was there really something to those wild yarns? There was, and what is more to the point, there still is. At least there's enough to it that I am leaving for Kentucky this evening, and I came here for the express purpose of asking you whether you wanted to come along. Bolton suggested that I ask you. He said that the whole thing sounded to him like magic, and that magic was more in your line than ours. He made out a request for your services, and I have it in my pocket now. Are you interested?" "How does the Secret Service cut in on it?" asked the doctor. "It seems to me that it is a state matter. Mammoth Cave isn't a national park." "Apparently you haven't followed the papers. It was a state matter until the governor asked for federal troops. Whenever the regulars get into trouble, the federal government is rather apt to take a hand." "I didn't know that regulars had been sent there. Tell me about the case. Will you come along?" Dr. Bird shook his head slowly. "I really don't see how I can spare the time, Carnes," he said. "I am in the midst of some work of the utmost importance, and it hasn't reached the stage where I can turn it over to an assistant." "Then I won't bother you with the details," replied Carnes as he rose. "Sit down, confound you," cried the doctor. "You know better than to try to pull that one on me. Tell me your case, and then I'll tell you whether or not I'll go. I can't spare the time, but on the other hand, if it sounds interesting enough." Carnes laughed. "All right, doctor," he said. "I'll take time enough to tell you about it, even if you can't go. Do you know anything about it?" "No, I read the first story halfway through and then stopped. Start at the beginning and tell me the whole thing." "Have you ever been to is necessary if one wants to enter them and be at all sure of finding the way out. Visitors are taken over a regular route and are seldom allowed to visit portions of the cave off those routes. Large parts of the cave have never been thoroughly explored or mapped. So much for the scene. About a month ago, a party from Philadelphia who were motoring through Kentucky entered the cave with a regular guide. The party consisted of a man and his wife and their 2 children, a boy of 14 and a girl of 12. They went quite a distance back into the caves, and then, as the mother was feeling tired, she and her husband sat down, intending to wait until the guide showed the children some sights which lay just ahead, and then return to them. The guide and the children never returned. What happened? No one knows. All that is known is the bare fact that they have not been seen since. A kidnapping case. Apparently not in the light of later happenings, although that was at first thought to be the explanation. The parents waited for some time. The mother says that she heard faint screams in the distance some 10 minutes after the guide and the children left, but they were very far away, and she isn't sure that she heard them at all. At any rate, they didn't impress her at the time. When half an hour had passed, they began to feel anxious, and the father took a torch and started out to hunt for them. The usual thing happened. He got lost. When he failed to return, the mother, now thoroughly alarmed, made her way, by some uncanny sense of direction, to the entrance and gave the alarm. In half an hour, a dozen search parties were on their way into the cave. The father was soon located, not far from the beaten trail, but despite 3 days of constant search, the children were not located. The only trace of them that was found was a bracelet which the mother identified. It was found in the cavern some distance from the beaten path and was broken as though by violence. There were no other signs of a struggle. When the bracelet was found, the kidnapping theory gained vogue, for John Harrell, the missing guide, knew the cave well, and natives of the vicinity scouted the idea that he might be lost. Inspired by the large reward offered by the father, fresh parties began to explore the unknown portions of the cave, and then came the second tragedy. 2 of the searches failed to return. This time there seemed to be little doubt of violence, for screams and a pistol shot were faintly heard by other searchers, together with a peculiar screaming howl, as it was described by those who heard it. A search was at once made toward the spot where the bracelet had been picked up, and the gun of one of the missing men was found within 50 yards of the spot where the bracelet had been discovered. 1 cylinder of the revolver had been discharged. Were there any signs on the floor? The searchers said that the floor appeared to be rather more moist and slimy than usual, but that was all. They also spoke of a very faint smell of musk, but this observation was not confirmed by others who arrived a few moments later. What happened next? The governor was appealed to, and a company of the National Guard was sent from Louisville to Mammoth Cave. They took up camp at the mouth of the cave and prevented everyone from entering. Soldiers armed with service rifles penetrated the caverns, but found nothing. Visitors were excluded, and the guardsmen established regular patrols and sentry posts in the cave, with the result that one night, when time came for relief, the only trace that could be found of one of the guards was his rifle. It had not been fired. Double guards were then posted, and nothing happened for several days, and then another sentry disappeared. His companion came rushing out of the cave screaming. When he recovered, he admitted that both he and the missing man had gone to sleep, and that he woke to find his comrade gone. He called and he says that the answer he received was a peculiar whistling noise which raised all the hair on the back of his neck. flashed his electric torch all around, but could see nothing. He swears, however, that he heard a slipping, sliding noise approaching him, and he felt that someone was looking at him. He stood it as long as he could and then drew down his rifle and ran for his life. Had he been drinking? No, it wasn't delirium either, as was shown by the fact that a patrol found his gun where he had thrown it, but no trace of the other sentry. After the second experience, the guardsmen weren't very eager to enter the cave, and the governor asked for regulars. A company of infantry was ordered down from Fort Thomas to relieve the guardsmen, but they fared worse than their predecessors. They lost 2 men the first night of their guard. The regulars weren't caught napping, for the main guard heard 5 shots fired. They rushed a patrol to the scene and found both of the rifles which had been fired, but the men were gone. The officer of the day made a thorough search of the vicinity and found, some 200 yards from the spot where the sentries had been posted, a crack in the wall through which the body of a man could be forced. This body crack had fresh blood on either side of it. Several of his men volunteered to enter the hole and search, but the lieutenant would not allow it. Instead, he armed himself with a couple of hand grenades and an electric torch and entered himself. That was last Tuesday, and he has not returned. Was there any disturbance heard from the crack? None at all. A guard was posted with 2 machine guns pointed at the crack in the wall, and a guard of 8 men and a sergeant stationed there. Last night, about 6 o'clock, while the guard was sitting around their guns, a faint smell of musk became evident. No one paid a great deal of attention to it, but suddenly, for no apparent reason at all, one of the men on guard was jerked into the air, feet upward. He gave a scream of fear, and an unearthly screech answered him. The guard, with the exception of 1 man, turned tail and ran. One man stuck by his gun and poured a stream of bullets into the crack. The retreating men could hear the rattle of the gun for a few moments, and then there was a choking scream, followed by silence. When the officer of the day got back with a patrol, there was a heavy smell of musk in the air, and a great deal of blood was splashed around. The machine guns were both there, although one of them was twisted up until it looked like it had been through an explosion. The officer commanding the company investigated the place, ordered all men out of the cave, and communicated with the War Department. The Secretary of War found it too tough a nut to crack, and he asked for help, so Bolton is sending me down there. Do you think, in view of this yarn, that your experiments can wait? The creases on Dr. Bird's high forehead had grown deeper and deeper as Carnes had told his story, but now they suddenly disappeared, and he jumped to his feet with a boyish grin. How soon are we leaving? He asked. In 2 hours, Doctor. A car is waiting for us downstairs, and I have reservations booked for us, both on the Southern tonight. I knew that you were coming. In fact, the request for your services had been approved before I came here to see you. Dr. Bird rapidly divested himself of his laboratory smock and took his coat and hat from a cupboard. I hope you realize, Carnsey, old dear, he said as he followed the operative out of the building, that I have a real fondness for your worthless old carcass. I am leaving with the results of 2 weeks of patient work alone and unattended in order to keep you out of trouble, and I know that it will be ruined when I get back. I wonder whether you are worth it. Bosh, retorted Carnes. I'm mighty glad to have you along, but you needn't rub it in by pretending that it is affection for me that is dragging you reluctantly into this mess. With an adventure like this ahead of you, leg irons and handcuffs wouldn't keep you away from Mammoth Cave, whether I was going or not. It was late afternoon before Dr. Bird and Carnes dismounted from the special train course, the single company which had borne the first brunt of the affair, and then interviewed the guards who had been routed by the unseen horror which was haunting the famous cave. Nothing was learned which differed in any great detail from the tale which Carnes had related to the doctor in Washington, except that the officer of the day who had investigated the last attack failed to entirely corroborate the smell of musk which had been reported by the other observers. It might have been musk, but to me it smelled differently, he said. Were you ever near a rattlesnake den in the West? Dr. Bird nodded. Then you know the peculiar reptilian odor which such a place gives off. Well, the smell was somewhat similar, although not the same by any manner of means. It was musky, all right, but it was more snake than musk to me. I rather like musk, but the smell gave me the horrors. Did you hear any noises? None at all. The men described some rather peculiar noises, and Sergeant Jervis is an old file and pretty apt to get things straight, but they may have been made by the men who were in trouble. I saw a man caught by a boa in South America once, and the noises he made might very well have been described in almost the same words as Jervis used. Thanks, Lieutenant, replied the doctor. I'll remember what you have told me. Now I think we'll go into the cave. My orders are to allow no one to enter, Doctor. I beg your pardon. Carnes, where is that letter from the Secretary of War? Carnes produced the document. The lieutenant examined it and excused himself. He returned in a few moments with the commanding officer. In the face of the letter, Dr. Bird, said the major, I have no alternative to allowing you to enter the cave, but I must warn you that it is at your own peril. I'll give you an escort if you wish. If Lieutenant Pierce will come with me as a guide, that will be all that I need. The lieutenant paled slightly, but threw back his shoulders. Do you wish to start at once, sir? He asked. In a few moments. What is the floor of the cave like where we are going? Quite wet and slimy, sir. Very slippery. Yes, sir. In that case, before we go in, we want to put on baseball shoes with cleats on them so that we can run if we have to. Can you get us anything like that? In a few moments, sir. Good. As soon as we can get them, we'll start. In the meantime, may I look at that gun that was found? The Browning machine gun was laid before the doctor. He looked it over critically and sniffed delicately at it. He took from his pocket a vial of liquid, moistened a portion of the water jacket of the weapon, and then rubbed the moistened part briskly with the sand. He sniffed again. He looked disappointed and again examined the gun closely. Carnes, he said at length, do you see anything on this gun that looks like tooth marks? Nothing, Doctor. Neither do I. There are some marks here which might quite conceivably be fingerprints of a 40-foot giant, and those two parallel grooves look like the result of severe squeezing, but there are no tooth marks. Strange. There is no persistent odor on the gun, which is also strange. Well, there's no use in theorizing. We are confronted by a condition and not a theory, as someone once said. Let's put on those baseball shoes and see what we can find out. Dr. Bird led the way into the cave, Carnes and the lieutenant following closely with electric torches. In each hand, Dr. Bird carried a phosphorescent grenade. No other weapons were visible, although the doctor knew that Carnes carried a caliber .45 automatic pistol strapped under his left armpit. As they passed into the cave, the lieutenant stepped forward to lead the way. I'm going first, said the doctor. Follow me and indicate the turns by pressure on my shoulder. not speak after we have started, and be ready for instant flight. Let's go." Forward into the interior of the cave they made their way. The iron cleats of the baseball shoes rang on the floor, and the noise echoed back and forth between the walls, dying out in little eerie whispers of sounds that make Karn's hair rise. Ever forward they pressed, the lieutenant guiding the doctor by silent pressure on his shoulder, and Karn's following closely. For half a mile they went on until a restrainable pressure brought the doctor to a halt. The lieutenant pointed silently toward a crack in the wall before them. Karn started forward to examine it, but a warning gesture from the doctor stopped him. Slowly, an inch at a time, the doctor crept forward, hand grenades in readiness. Presently, he reached the crack, and shifting one of the grenades into his pocket, he drew forth an electric torch and sent a beam of light through the crack into the dark interior of the earth. For a moment he stood thus, and then suddenly snapped off his torch and straightened up in an attitude of listening. The straining ears of Karn's and Lieutenant Pierce could hear a faint slithering noise coming toward them, not from the direction of the crack, but from the interior of the cave. Simultaneously, a faint, musky, reptilian odor became apparent. "Run!" shouted the doctor. "Run like hell! It's loose in the cave!" The lieutenant turned and fled at top speed toward the distant entrance to the cave. Karn's at his heels. Dr. Bird paused for an instant, straining his ears, and then threw a grenade. A blinding flash came from the point where the muzzle struck, and a white cloud rose in the air. The doctor turned and fled after his companions. Not for nothing had Dr. Bird been an athlete of note in his college days. Despite the best efforts of his companions, who were literally running for their lives, he soon caught up with them. As he did so, a weird, blood-curdling screech arose from the darkness behind them. Higher and higher in pitch the note rose until it ended suddenly in a gurgling grunt, as though the breath which uttered it had been suddenly cut off. The slithering, rustling noise became louder on their trail. Faster, grasped the doctor as he put his hand on Karn's shoulder and pushed him